Are you looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub 2 Deals Show with your host, Sub 2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub-Tours. My name is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2 Deals Show, where we talk about all things subject to. Occasionally, we'll cover some other real estate topics, but we always have something here to help you with your real estate investing business. Today is another episode in our Real Investor series where we feature real investors sharing real stories and real deals. These guys are investors doing deals all across the country. They don't have any boot camps or courses to sell. They just have real tips and strategies and the things that are working today in their businesses and in their markets. They're going to share them with you. These things can work for you too. So pay attention and take notes. Today, I have the Get It Girls on with me, Cindy Crane, Lisa Englehart. They are investors. Cindy's actually in Jackson. Lisa's in Richmond, Virginia. Excuse me, I better say Jackson, Mississippi for Cindy. They've been investing for years together. Gosh, you guys have, how many years of investing experience now?
I'm at about 10 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
This is Cindy.
Right. And Lisa?
I would say about the same. I did a deal a long time ago, so I really didn't know I was a real estate investor. So about four full-time years.
I got you. Okay. So over 20 years experience between the two of you guys, man. That's great. Guys, I want to welcome you to the Sub 2 Deal Show today.
Thanks, William. Proud to be here.
Thank you, William. Excited to be here.
Yeah. I tell you, you guys have been posting and sharing on the board for quite some time over at the forum on Facebook. And I've been really wanting to have you guys on here. I see all the deals y'all post and the interesting things that y'all do. And y'all really got just an amazing business going. Before we get started here, let's go back just a little. Can you guys just tell the audience out here a little bit about your background, what you did before real estate and how you got started?
Sure. So this is Cindy, and I think I always wanted to be in business. I just didn't know what kind of business. I really didn't figure out what I wanted to do till I was about 50. So that was about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I grew up working class parents. My dad had bulldozers and motor graders, and we had horses and cows. And my mom was a legal secretary. Went to college, got a degree, didn't want to grow up, so I got a master's degree and got married and did all that. And then that didn't work out, so I got divorced and I had to have a job. So I had to pay the bill. So I said, this is a good time to learn about what I want to learn. So I found a contractor in the newspaper. That's when you got jobs from the newspaper about 25 years ago, who worked on antebellum homes. And that means before the war, Civil War. And so we worked on really old houses, and he hired me, and I went to work that first day, and I was hand driving nails in the subfloor with my 2 degrees, making $6 an hour. So I didn't quit. That's the key. I wanted to learn, so I stuck in there, and I learned everything about a house from the top to the bottom and everything in between. And that was good practice for me. I didn't know that would help me so much down the road. Then I went on and did some work on my own, painting and rehabbing. And I went to work for Home Depot, then Rubbermaid. And I found a guy at the local, this is actually before internet was big. So you couldn't find out about events like you do now. But the local Jackson real estate group had a meeting every week. And I went, and I was kind of an outsider. I was new. And I would just kind of sit in the corner and listen. And this one guy, Walter Wofford, was a little bit, he colored outside the lines. He's a creative investing guy, and he offered a bird dog class. Well, I was on it. That was my ticket. So I jumped in the car every chance I could and got with our little group and drove for dollars and did my first deal, wholesale deal, and made like $1,200, and I was hooked. And kind of the rest is history. I just followed him and followed the smart people and started investing, wholesaling, buy and hold, a couple of flips, short-term rentals, notes, creating notes. And so that's what I do now, except I have a cool partner on some deals in Jackson, and that's Lisa.
Oh,
Lisa, how about you? Tell us a little about your background. What got you started?
when I was 18, I'll go back that far. I actually took the all the classes to become a real estate agent, and I never went and took my state board. I had purchased a house when I was 18, and so I had bills, and that was probably my biggest downfall is I had bills. I bought a new car, so I felt stuck. So I ended up working full-time for banks. I had really pretty good jobs. Then I worked for a local power company. I have my cosmetology license so I owned a salon back in the day. Just really wasn't really happy with anything that I was doing. So I feel like my passion was always in real estate. Fast forwarding quite a few years, I met my husband now. His name is Shirley, and he had a broker's license, even though he was in law enforcement. So he kind of did both, and he was a builder. So he said, you should really get back in real estate, or really get into real estate. And so I didn't have to take any classes because I still had all of my original approved paperwork. So I went and sat for the board. 3 years later, you have to have a license in Virginia or real estate license for 3 years before you can sit for the broker's exam. So I did that. So I was a Remax agent for 7 years, and then I went out on my own. At the same time, the market crashed and we were in a crisis, and I was in a model home, and one of my friends from the Richmond area who worked for one of the large banks called me and said, Lisa, we need somebody to sell our REO properties. And I'm thinking to myself, what's REO, right? So she said, foreclosures. Would you like to do it? And I said, yes, of course. And she said, okay, we'll get you all set up, and you're going to need to do a BPO. What's a BPO? Okay, I'll figure it out. So long story short, they were my biggest client. New construction kind of petered out at that point. So I was really full-time. I built a business on REO. I listed and sold over 1,200 properties in not a very long period of time for banks, government agencies, and financial institutions. I did a lot of short sales. So I have a ton of experience working with people in distress, homeowners, tenants that the homeowners stopped paying the mortgage on. We did tons of cash for keys, evictions. So I've been on the other side, on the bank side, which was not a very good position to be in. I was the bad guy, even though I was able to work out all of the deals. I had like a 98% successful cash for keys rate on trying to help people. I've always been very passionate about people, and I used to always tell people, well, I could be in your position one day if all of my listings stopped. So I'm very compassionate about helping people, and I'm so happy today. Fast forwarding again, I had this guy. He's really a mentor of mine, Jim Ingersoll, here in Richmond. He holds a boot camp every year, and I knew I had to get out. I was working 7 days a week. I had agents working for me. The phone rang constantly. I never had any time to myself, and I had to get out. So I went to his boot camp, and it changed my life. And I set a deadline, and I said, that's it. On this day, all my agents are going to have to go find jobs somewhere else. I'm giving back whatever I don't have, and I am going to be a full-time real estate investor, and that's what I did.
Wow, that's a great story. Just making that decision. I can remember when I got started. My story was a little bit different, but I just said in 1 year I'm out. And that was the plan, and that's what I did. 1 year later, I lowered my expenses to the point to where I could buy enough houses to support myself in 12 months, and that's what I did. And I quit my job, and that was that. That's a great story. It's an interesting thing you bring up too about helping people. That's what I try to teach people. A lot of the deals that we do are pre-foreclosures, and I always encourage investors to first approach those people. They're going through a difficult time. They have a lot of stuff going on. And if you first approach with a heart to help in any way that you can, what you'll find is that, a lot of times you can actually help somebody keep their house. And it won't be a deal for you, but, if those people ever get in trouble again, it won't matter how many cards or letters that they get, you're going to be their huckleberry. So I think that's the best approach to have. Plus the fact that you get to help somebody keep their house.
I agree.
Yep. So how long have you guys been investing? I know we mentioned it at the start of the show, but Cindy, how long have you actually been an investor?
Well, I bought my first rental house using bank money. And that's the only time I've ever done that. The only house I've ever bought with a bank loan. And it was next door, just so I could control who my neighbors were.
Right.
And that was like 2005. And I really didn't do much past that. But when I got involved with Walter and Jackson and went to that same boot camp that Lisa was talking about with Jim, and I bought like 30 houses in 1 year, which is not very smart. And I would tell people not to do that unless you got a lot of plans and you got a lot of, things set up, processes and systems, and some money, to be able to get past that.
Right.
So that's when I started.
Okay. And you've been full-time now so you got started in about 2005, so 14.
Yeah, and I think I jumped in, William, that was about late 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been 5 years pretty much with no plan B,
Oh, great. Good for you. Lisa, how about you? How long have you been investing?
Full-time 4 years now. When I gave up REO, there's no way that I could do both of them at the same time. I tried. Well, I actually did one flip on a historical house with some historic tax credits. So that was a really good deal for me. I would say that was probably about 6 years ago while I was doing REO. And then I would, of course, sell my own houses. And I would sell our flips because I have a broker's license. But for me, I primarily do flips. Gotten more into sub-twos. I'm really liking those because it's rewarding for me. And I felt like it was my nature for me because I already know how to work with these people and I already have the knowledge, and I have a lot of REO contacts. I have a lot of loss mitigation contacts. And so I think focus for me has been probably the hardest thing as a real estate investor, focusing, because it all really starts with one house. You have to have a deal, and then you determine what bucket that deal goes in. So it could be sub-2, it could be a better flip, it could be something you hold as a rental. I'm not really into being a landlord. I have been one before, accidental, on one of the new construction houses that we built when the market turned that I owned, but I really prefer to be the lien lord, as Cindy and I call it. And but I'm focusing now more on sub-2s and seller financing.
Right.
And then of course my husband and I build houses, and we're now building tiny houses on foundations to keep as short-term rentals.
Right.
So that's pretty much where I am.
I got you. Okay. Well, tell us about your business models exactly. A lot of people have a thing that they do. I know when I got started, I did everything. I was proud to be a transaction engineer. If a lead, if a lead came along, I had a pigeonhole for it, and I was going to do it, and that's just the way it worked. And what I found over time was, I wanted to, we get into this business to have the lifestyle that we want. And when I decided to move out of the country, being a transaction engineer wasn't the smartest thing in the world to try to do. So I really refined things, and all I do now is buy subject to, sell with owner financing, and don't do a whole bunch of those. About a dozen a year is all I'm going to do. But everybody's got a thing. And so as far as a business model, Cindy, would you say that you have a business model, or do you just take care of whatever comes along?
Well, that's a great point. And what Lisa said about focus, the further I get along in this life, that's what I realize is really important. And that's, like they say, focus makes you rich. So I would say that I started out just chasing the shiny objects. When I made that first $1,200 doing a wholesale deal, I was like, can I do another one tomorrow? And the next day, it was like on fire. But it didn't happen like that. So you have to have perseverance. So I did a little bit of everything. I did what my mentor did. Whatever he did, I did. And he kept beating me on the head saying, you don't really want these, C neighborhood rentals. You need to, be seller financing them and create notes and have that passive income come through. And William, the thing and this is part of why Lisa and I, came together with the Get It Girls, is because we both found our way and floundered along. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of money making mistakes because I didn't have a mentor, a real mentor or a coach that was specifically for me, holding my hand, saying, let's make a plan for your future, So I did it the hard way. I made lots of mistakes. I've written checks, I laugh and tell, when you see my picture, I laugh and tell people I'm 25. This is what real estate has done to me. Gray hair, So, I'm being kind of facetious, but it has, it's been, that whole little diagram of success, people think that you just like a rocket straight to the top, but there's a lot of dips and turns and pitfalls and take 3 steps back and, and there's some pain in it, pain and pleasure. But I think if you have somebody, like even just people that were interested in Subject 2, if they went to your Facebook group and asked questions, because in there, that's a great environment for people, like we spoke about earlier, to ask the stupid questions. I'm doing air quotes, stupid questions. And I was fortunate to be in that group with Walter and amongst some of the great investors in this country. And I would get to go to the masterminds because I was his girl Friday. That's what I always call myself. Mm-hmm. I would clean toilets or run papers. I'd do whatever just so I could learn.
Right.
And I was fortunate to be in those mastermind groups, but I sat back and was a wallflower because I was usually the only girl in the group. And I listened, when I got a lot of one-sided conversations and I was smart enough and had the desire to go find the answers, So, so as far as the business model, it's getting more honed and closer. And Lisa and I have been talking about that as we've been doing deals together because of the price points where I live and the partnership that we have. Partners should bring their talents to the table together, and they should offset each other. Like what I do, what I'm good at, she does what she's good at. So I think we're going to focus more, like Lisa said, about Subject 2 and getting people to seller finance houses and maybe wholesaling the others, depending on the bucket from the leads that we get. So I'm looking forward to a little more focus in my life.
Right. I got you. Lisa, how about you? You have a specific model. I know you said you guys are building small homes and on foundations and doing that sort of thing. Is that primarily what you do, or do you have just a big list of things that you do?
Well, that's a good question because I'm trying to narrow down what it is that I want to do. I'm tired of it being too many buckets. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
Plus, I think the flood of wholesalers and quote unquote house flippers and HGTV watchers and that are in the, Richmond's booming and the price points have just really gotten out of control here. And so I have one flip left in the city of Richmond that's in a great area. And when I get done with that, I have some lots too that in the city that I've got to build 6 houses on and sell if I don't sell the lots. But I'm getting out of that area. I want to go more out on the outskirts. I'm building the little houses in a coastal area where they make good rentals, like short-term rentals, not just, long-term rentals, more short-term rentals, because people just don't have anywhere to stay. And I saw a need for that. And they're like within a mile of where my house is in a coastal area. So I'm trying to build up a community that I see future in. So I guess I've focused a lot on buying land. I call myself a land hoarder. I like lots. I go in, I buy them cheap. I study the comprehensive plans on the counties that I want to invest in. I go to the board of supervisor and the planning meetings as much as I can so that I can be in the know of what's going on. And therefore, I've been able to buy property it's not going to benefit me now. I realize that, but I was able to get such a good price on it. And then water and sewers coming in. So I don't think I've done too bad putting some money aside for that. But as far as like where my focus is now is the little tiny houses. They're easy. I can control them for the most part. I don't have any surprises on getting into a wall and there being termites or anything like that. And I have to put out more money. I know exactly what my costs are. And I'm trying to get out of flipping, and I'm doing more with Cindy, with subject twos, trying to get seller financing from a lot of the sellers. And we're creating notes. And if we want to sell any of these notes, we need cash, we can do that.
Right. That sounds like a great plan, actually. But I love subject to. Anytime I hear that, I think that's a great plan. uh, where would you say that you guys are getting your best leads from? I mean, we all do things. We do different things. Some of us do bandit signs, some of us do direct mail, some of us do cold calling, some of us do a combination of those things. But Cindy, if you had to say what your best sources for seller leads are right now, what would you say that those are?
Well, I do have the investor carrot websites that Trevor Mock has. And those were for me. I really don't do any like pay-per-click or any kind of really promotion other than I always include my web address on Facebook marketing, have a virtual assistant that does Facebook marketing for us, just posting ads in groups and Facebook pages. And those we buy and sell off the marketplace. Actually, 2 recent deals we did, I found from the guy on Facebook Marketplace that was selling them. And I guess he was just overlooked, and he didn't want to sell with a realtor, so he put them on the Facebook Marketplace. I like, other wholesalers bring deals that I know. And the one cool one that I really like, and I bought 4 houses this way one time, is like on Craigslist. I went back like a month and looked back at who was selling their houses and just followed up with them. And a guy had a 4-pack of houses and nobody had bought them yet. So they were still available. So I made a deal with him to buy those 4. So I think just following up is a good thing as well.
Yeah. Okay. Lisa, what would you say is your best source for leads?
Direct mail for me, and consistency. And I learned that the hard way. One of my sub twos that I bought, the lady could not find my letter, and she would have called me probably 2 months prior, but she couldn't find where she put my letter. So I learned on that. That taught me a good lesson, because I do believe that you have to be consistent and just keep on following up. I don't know if you've ever heard, I'm sure you have, where I believe it's 7 touches that you should communicate with people.
Right.
And I get a lot of those funding opportunities in the mail from being a business owner, and they wear me out. So probably if I needed business funding, I would definitely call them, because as much correspondence as I get from them, they're constantly in my face. So I get it. I finally get it. Bandit signs just don't work for me. I've tried them everywhere. I still have a lot of them, and they just did not work for me. I do a lot of research on the MLS. I look for VA loans, FHA loans, expired listings, and I get referrals from people that know what I do. And we're starting to do some data scraping and working more with detailed lists. And I think that will probably be our better source of leads.
Right. For your direct mail, what are your best lists that you mail to?
I have a little secret that I do that
we love secrets. So
I know you probably do. All right. You know that I am, my background is REO. So I can't tell you, over a 10-year period, I had agents in my office doing them too. We did BPOs, and that's really kind of where some of my agents made a lot of extra money. So I'm still on all the lists, even though, we don't have as many requests. So I'm on the list for all of my contacts, and all I want is the address. That's all I want. All I want is the address, because what happens is once a property is 30 days behind on the mortgage, the financial institution orders a BPO. And that person may pay it, they may not, they may pay it, but I'm one of the agents that they're ordered from. And so I just want that address. And I've actually bought subject twos because of that. So that's my little secret to staying in on the pre-foreclosures before they become public knowledge.
Okay. All right. So if I'm following you here, what you're saying is real estate agents that do BPOs, they have the knowledge ahead of time when somebody's 30 days late.
They'll have the knowledge if they do BPOs and they are on the list with the BPO companies that are providing that service to the banks.
Okay, and if you were an investor in any market in the U.S. and you wanted to pursue this, all you would do would be contact agents to find out who does BPOs.
Well, a lot of agents, I can probably name maybe 10 in my market that actually do REO. Probably 4 of them, I used to, but not anymore, dominate the REO world. And those are the agents only if they were signed up with them, because those BPO companies are just third-party companies, just like appraisal companies, where financial institutions, banks, HUD, government agencies, they'll order a BPO from a third-party company when someone's in default, because they want to see, what does that house look like? Is it even still standing? And they want to know. So basically it's a drive-by. You just take pictures, right. And then you complete a report. It's pretty detailed, but you complete the report with comps, kind of giving them an idea on value without seeing the inside. And I just happen to still be signed up with all of them. And I have the experience. They don't take just anybody. Like if you're a real estate agent and you want to start doing them, I don't know how you get in, because you have to have some experience with it. They don't want anybody that doesn't have any experience. So right. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, I guess the real question is, as an investor working in a certain market, if they want to be able to tap into this lead source, they've got to find agents who do BPOs. So what would be the simplest way for them to locate these agents that can give them an address? I mean, of course, once they make contact with an agent, at that point, they've got to get them to release that information. But that's a whole different thing. How do they find these agents to begin with?
The investors are going to know who the REO brokers are in their market. Okay. Because they probably purchased REO properties from them.
Okay. But I get you. Okay. So it's mainly and what I found when I worked a local market in Macon was it was typically some of the smaller real estate offices that handled a lot of the REOs. It typically wasn't the big companies. It was the smaller guys. Do you find that?
Yes.
To be the case? Okay.
Yes. Uh-huh.
All right. Great. Now, that's a good tip. Hadn't heard of that one. Cindy, do you have any favorite tools that you use in your business that really help you get things done?
Well, I think one of the best things that I did, and Lisa and I now use this, is a virtual assistant. That there's plenty of places. I got this one from a referral from another investor that had extra hours, but they're typically the ones I have used are from the Philippines, and you can go on Upwork. I think we'll put it in the message, onlinejobs.ph, through a Philippine agency that you can get. These people are very loyal. They have all the ones I've worked with seem to have good character, and they're hardworking, and they work for, I think our lady works for $6 an hour, but you can get, $3, $4 an hour people to do just errands or do research. They can do most anything. The only drawback to me was the language. She has a little bit of an accent, so when they try to call people from the South or in the South, it's a little bit hard for Southerners to understand them. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're not best for calling people, but they can do a lot of the behind the scenes, pretty much any video that you can make. And that's another good tip, is if you want to train somebody, just take your, on the iPhone now, you can screen record or use Camtasia or some sort of app on your computer to record your screen and make a video so that the people can see step-by-step process of how to do what you want them to do and just manage their expectations. But that, and having the last 3 or 4 months, she's been mostly bookkeeper, but bookkeeper and part-time personal assistant, just to take some of the mundane everyday chore kind of load off of me. because I believe that you should do what you're good at. And I can do, phone calls and run errands, but I need to be buying and selling houses because that's where I make the most money at. And then Fiverr.com. That's a site that you can find people that will do anything from graphic design to data scraping to spreadsheets. If you're not good at it, I truly believe the 4-Hour Work Week was a revolutionary book that changed the way we do business in the world. And Tim Ferriss. And so I tried to use those principles on Fiverr.com and with virtual assistants. That's been a big thing for me. And I want to incorporate more of that in the future going forward. I'll have to get where I want to go.
Oh, yeah. Well, at some points you have to hire people to do some of the, especially the things you don't want to do. But you're right. I mean, your money's made talking to buyers and sellers. That's for sure. Lisa, any tools that you could recommend?
This is going to sound a little silly, but I work on the back end with mine and Cindy's deals with trying to run the numbers and coming up with P&I where it's less than rent, because when we do a seller finance back out to an end buyer, we want to keep the rent below, the mortgage below the rent or right at it. Okay. So I use the Brett Whistle online calculator because I use it like every day because you can leave whatever field blank and it'll fill in the blank for you once you compute it. And it really helps because, 72 payments might not work, but 100 payments might work. So I play with those numbers a lot. I rely on my MLS. That's probably the biggest thing for me is keeping my real estate license, even though I'm not actively out listening and selling real estate anymore, unless it's my own deal outside of any type of I'll list my flip only. I don't buy properties through my real estate firm at all. I do that through other sources, other companies that I own and trust. But the MLS, like Cindy said, the VAs, I have used ListSource before, although a lot of information is available to me online without having to use ListSource. You just have to dig in and try to find it.
Right. Now, what was that first tool that you talked about that you used? What is that?
Are you talking about Brett Whistle?
Yeah.
Okay, it's BRET and then WHISS is in Sam EL. And if you Google it, it'll come up. Brett Whistle. It's not an app. It's only online. I don't think it's an app, but you can run amortization schedules, which we provide everybody with as well once we get our numbers straight. So I like the tool. I also use Excel because the Brett Whistle, if you run the amortization schedule, it has some ads in it. So Excel has an excellent amortization schedule, and I'll just plug in the numbers and it will automatically do the same thing, and it's much cleaner. So I've caught myself using that more than but I get my numbers from the Brett Whistle, and then I plug them into Excel spreadsheet that's already prepared and runs all the totals for you.
Now, the Brett Whistle thing, is that a free service or a paid service?
It's free. It's free online.
Cool. Okay, great. Guys, we're going to be back in just a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, Cindy and Lisa are going to talk to us about their criteria when evaluating a sub-2 deal and deciding if it's something that they want to pass or play on. So you guys, we'll be back in just a few minutes.
The Sub-2 Deals Show with your host, Sub-2 expert William Tingle. We'll be right back. Hey Sub-2ers, have you been trying to learn how to invest in real estate? It can take you years to learn the ropes on your own. How many people do you know who have been looking into real estate investing for years, but have never bought a single house? Do you have shelves full of courses but lack the courage to get out there and close on that first deal? Are you tired of so-called coaches who always seem to have just one more thing to sell you that you absolutely must have to be successful? Are you tired of trying to piece it all together with YouTube videos and free forms found on the internet? Is that really any way to build a business? William Tingle has been coaching real estate investors all over the country for over 16 years. And if you are ready, he can show you how to buy all the houses you want, anywhere you want, without ever having to ask a banker for one thin dime. Contact William today at sub2deals.com and schedule your free 30-minute strategy session. Talk it over, and if you think you're finally ready for success, he'll get you going. Back to the show, the Sub2 Deals Show, with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Hey guys, we're back with Cindy and Lisa, the Get It Girls. They're talking to us about their businesses today and how they actually buy and sell houses, sharing a lot of information with us. We've got a bunch of great tips already. And now we're going to talk just a little bit about evaluating their deals. Now, I know I'm looking for some specific things when I'm looking at a deal to pick up. And of course, all I do is subject to. I'm looking for something I can make money on up front, nice cash flow on a monthly basis, and a back end profit. I tend to be kind of greedy when it comes to that sort of thing. I want all of it. So, but I'm always interested to hear what other investors think. So Cindy, let me start with you. When you're looking at a potential deal that's you're going to get the deed on, what are you looking for, and how do you decide if you want to pass or play?
Well, I think probably the money, the numbers, the profit, that's obviously the main thing. How much money. I know I was approached yesterday by a girl who was asking for advice that had a potential subject to deal, and the seller wanted $30,000. And I told her, I said, well, if your profit's $500 a month, I mean, that'll take you, 5 years to get that back. But I was thinking I could leverage $30,000 into a bunch more deals. So exactly. I told her that wouldn't be for me, So I like, just like you, I like, the deal I can get in with the least amount of money, if it's just, like a subject to deal or a seller finance, somebody's financing for me. And then the numbers have to work so that I have, Lisa and I've been shooting for 300 plus per month. Of course, we're doing the deals together. So, we just have to buy twice as many to make the same amount of money. But that's not a problem. And I probably too, a house, William, that's not, a lot of houses in our area where we've been working, which we're trying to migrate out to the suburbs, have a lot of deferred maintenance. So that's kind of an issue. I don't really want to do a lot of work on them or have my future end buyer do a lot of work on them. And then most of ours that we've been doing they're probably not going to, be able to refinance. So that's a long-term play. We're just looking at doing a wrap and just making that difference in the cash flow over time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'd say.
Right. I agree. Lisa, how about you? You looking for pretty much the same thing or something a little bit different?
Same thing. I think the biggest thing for me is, and it all comes with learning and doing it, is the deferred maintenance and how much money am I going to have to put out of my pocket to catch up on your payments, and how much money am I going to have to put out of my pocket to get this house sold? Could be a roof, HVAC unit could be shot. You have to evaluate all of that. And so there are deals that I would not buy for that reason, because right. I just can't take on that much expense up front and not get it back with the down payment from the end buyer, along with making a profit after you have to put that kind of money out.
Right. And that's one of the big things, especially with newer investors, that you try to explain to them, is that if you've got to put nothing real, and nothing doesn't always mean nothing, if that makes any sense. There are a lot of deals that we buy that we have to lay out a little cash up front. But let's just say that I'm buying a house that's worth $100,000. I know in most markets I can get a $10,000 down payment from my buyer. So if it cost me $5,000 to get into it, well, within 30, 60 days, I'm going to get 10 from a buyer. So I'm still ahead 5. I got nothing in this thing. So, on the short term, it's okay. But when you have to go into a house that's got deferred maintenance, like you guys are talking about, and you've got to put a new roof or new central heat and air and do a lot of stuff, and you can't recoup that money from your buyer's down payment, that's usually the deal breaker for me. I want to be able to recoup anything I have to put out with my buyer's down payment. Is that what you guys are doing pretty much?
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I'm sorry. For
No.
me, if the numbers work for a flip, I may take that on. I might not just pass on it. And I did that recently. So it just depends on what I can get it for, how much I have to put into it, and my end result.
Right. Yeah. And you have to have a plan. I mean, if your intent's to, you're looking at it, you say, well, that'll work for a flip, not for a keeper, then obviously you'll do that. But it's being able to evaluate that deal and know, we used to always say, know the door you're going out of before you go in the door. So, just have a plan basically is what it comes down to. So.
Well, and William, in our market where we've been working, that's the kind of the market where I was buying like, B- to C kind of neighborhood houses. So they do have their older houses and they have deferred maintenance. And we've been seller financing is our main thing. We will buy a house that we get from a lead, a wholesaler. I have a wholesaler that if I get a lead, I send it to him, and he's really good at closing. And I don't like to go to the closing table. I don't like to go to people's houses anymore. I've done all that. So I send him out, and he will make a deal with the seller. And sometimes he'll get a cash price that we usually make a cash offer and a financing offer. And sometimes he gets owner financing from the seller. And so depending on what the deal is, I'll pay him a fee, and then we'll take that house on and we'll use someone that we know in our financial friends network. We'll use their IRA money to finance that deal if we have to pay cash for it. And then we'll turn around and find a buyer that's a person that has some credit issues, much like probably the kind of person, that we talk about on the message board, on the Facebook group. But our people in that neighborhood, a lot of them have skills. So that's a little bit of difference. They can do some painting or sheetrock or roofing, and we like for them to have some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. But that's specific to the area we work right now. It's a different kind of, it's not in the suburbs where, the houses are, there's lots of sold comps, and you can get, like a more of A or a B buyer, I guess is what I'd be saying, Mm-hmm. So, but we want to move in that direction and go to the suburbs, and we know there's lots of opportunity there.
Oh yeah. That's that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years. I'm looking for houses that are typically less than 10 years old, in excellent condition, that have got some of these 3% mortgages on them, and just targeting those things and buying them. I tell you, that's really changed my business completely.
That's a sweet spot right there.
Just doing that. And it's tempting when you've been a transaction engineer, when something else comes along and then you go, no, I've just got to focus on this thing. Yeah, it is tempting to want to go out there and do some other stuff. Cindy, can you give us an example of a deal that you're working on right now?
I actually, my sister and I, she's a Walmart executive. She's another country girl up there in Arkansas, and she buys tax liens. So that's like in Mississippi, you have up to 3 years to pay your property taxes before you lose your house to the tax sale. So 3 years ago, she bought, it was a round robin. So you just bought whatever came to you, and it ended up maturing to her this year 1.8 acres in the city where I live. It was a couple, I think, that had passed away and nobody paid their taxes. So we bought the property. And in central Mississippi, there's kind of known for house moving. And I know that Flip and Move show is pretty famous these days. So people here move a lot of houses. I moved a tiny house in on an empty lot I had, but my friend Ricky Bobo I had him looking for a house for us, because my idea was to take that lot we'll probably have, I think for the tax deed and the 1 year's back taxes, we have $400 in it. And then we'll owe 2 more years of taxes, which will be another $400. And to get the title confirmed so that, nobody can come back and claim, anything on the property. And we have clear title. That's another about $2,500 or $2,600. Mm-hmm. But we're going to buy a house for like I think it's $23,000 for a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,100 square foot house in good shape. It's actually happening today. It's on a truck on the frame, and it's rolling up to Carthage, about 30 miles. And it's going to be placed on that lot, set up on blocks. And then we'll do we'll put air conditioning, central air and heat, and put a driveway and that kind of thing. And we're going to just end up being, I think, all in the probably about 40, I think, because that's what it's going to take to get it done. And then we're going to try to sell it retail. That's our goal, is to sell it retail. So that's something I've never really done before, and it's interesting, exciting at the same time, and it's a risk, but I'm up for the challenge. So
well, I mean, to have 40 in it, and what you should get, what, if I remember correctly, about 80.
That's what the local broker said, conservatively 80.
Well, yeah, that's hard to beat right there. It's just really funny listening to you say that. I grew up in Mississippi, and you're right. I mean, that's a common. It's nothing to see a house rolling down the road there, but and I've lived a lot of places since then, and I don't know if I've ever seen that happen much anyplace else. But in Mississippi, people just pick that house up and carry it down the road.
Move it, yeah. Well, and the thing about this too is there's enough frontage we don't have the strict zoning. That's another reason that makes business here a little easier. Is Lisa and them, they have tons of, especially in the city of Richmond, they have a lot of zoning issues. They have a lot of building code issues and stuff. So here it's simpler and more laid back. But I have enough property, frontage on there that I could potentially put 3 houses. So it may take me 3 years, but if I get 2 more good houses, I'd like to rent and repeat.
Oh yeah.
I'm leaning on Lisa for some advice on doing the development part, because that's what she's good at. So
I can see another niche popping up here that you'll hear about all over the country in a few years, and you'll go on tour. Cindy moves houses, and just teach everybody all over the country how to move houses and make money. That's great.
Well, I can't wait. I'll be glad to cash that check.
I hear you, man. That's great. Lisa, how about you? Tell us about something you got going on up there right now.
Well, her story is kind of hard for me to beat, but I just closed on a sub 2 that I took over that was more of a flip. The numbers worked for a flip, and they worked very well for a flip. Part of it's a divorce situation or an investment property where it was a referral to me. The female was frustrated because she could not get her divorce from her husband until this property had sold and been finalized. And that's what she told me, and brought me in. And it was a long, drawn out deal in the beginning. And it ended up being a really, really big project. But what I did to make it work is, I took it over subject to, I was making the mortgage payments on it that were very reasonable. We had to get the tenant out, and I took it over sub 2 and it needed a lot of work. I had to put up the money or get a second, which I didn't do. If I do that again, I'll get a second from one of my friends, my financial friends. I put up a lot of money of my own to make this thing happen. And I also created a promissory note for the equity that was still in the house. These people owned the house for 23 years. So they're in good faith. They had equity. I was not taking that from them. I'm a fair kind of person. So we wrote up the promissory note, and with 0 interest for a set amount. And that's what they got last week when it closed. And it all worked out really well. It was a really nice profit for me and my husband, and everybody won because their mortgage was paid, their credit was improved, they got money out of the deal, and I made money out of the deal, and everybody won.
What you're saying there is so right, because you see a lot of times investors, newer investors that come into this thing and think that somebody has to lose in the deal for them to win. But the truth is that most really successful investors create a scenario where everyone wins. The seller wins, we make a profit. The bank, doesn't have to take a house back. I mean, everyone involved in the transaction wins.
And that's pretty much how Cindy and I operate. everyone has to win. If there's somebody that's not going to win, if somebody's going to lose their home, and you can prevent that, that's a win for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have the responsibility of making those payments anymore. And so that's what these people were focused on. They were so happy that they were not going to have that on their record. And when I buy sub-twos, I don't give them an end date on when I'm going to pay their loan off. I make that clear up front because I don't know what my situation is going to be in 2 to 3 years or whenever. So I leave that open-ended. I'm not
Right.
sure. You may not agree with me on that,
Oh,
but
I
that's what I do.
absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. I never, ever make a seller a promise on a payoff date. All I can guarantee them is an on-time payment until that day happens.
That's right.
Because what I tell investors is, if you're buying a lot of sub-twos, if you're getting out there and you're really working it, I mean, for 12 years, I bought 3 to 5 houses a month. Okay. So if you do that for a few years and you're making all these promises, well, in 3 years, we'll have it done, or in 5 years, and you look up one day and you got 50, 60 houses that need to be paid off, and maybe the market's turned, or maybe nobody's lending, or maybe your buyers aren't able to get financing. What do? You got a lot of mad people. So no promises,
Right.
just promise of an on-time payment until we can get it done. And if that doesn't work, then, we can't do business.
Well, like in Mississippi, we'd say, don't write a check that your ass can't cash.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep. That's what we say, isn't it? All righty. Well, what about you guys, I know you guys do a lot of different types of deals. Cindy, tell us about your most unusual deal that you've done.
Well, I thought about that, and it's like picking like a favorite, because this business just lends itself to meeting the most interesting people. It's a wonderful life. It's got its ups and downs, but just the flavor and the color of the everyday life that we as investors live is just incredible to me. And I can't imagine doing anything else. So trying to pick one, favorite kind of thing. There's just so many good stories. We all need to get together sometime and, sit around the fire and share stories about what all we've done. It's just so entertaining, especially us as Southerners. We have a colorful life. But I think one of my favorite deals is, so I got a call. I don't remember actually if it was a call or an email through the Investor Carrot site. And it was about a house in the neighboring town in Pearl. And the lady, was behind on her payments, and she just needed some help, so I don't know what was going on, but I sent another friend of mine, David, who does wholesaling, and he's an investor as well. And he went over and he talked to the lady and found out, this was a couple of years ago, what her pain point was and what he could do to, solve the problem. And so she was behind about 4 months. And, this was like one of the first ones that I did. So I did if you could make mistakes, I made mistakes, I did it all wrong. And so it's a wonder Lisa's very forgiving. She's not going to beat me up for something I did when I didn't know better, But anyway, so I ended up getting, I got a title search done on the house. Everything was good. We didn't have the time was really, really of the essence in it. And I probably, looking back, I don't know if I'd do it or if I do the same way. Of course, hindsight's 20/20. But what I did was I said, you know what? I got the cash. She was like $2,400 and some odd dollars to catch up. So it was a nice little 3-bedroom house, or so I thought. And so I ended up meeting her at the bank, and I said, look, you have to sign this deed, because I'm fixing to pay $2,400 to the bank to catch your mortgage up. She had already moved to her mother-in-law's house. They didn't want the house. They just wanted the bank to quit calling them. And the payment was, I didn't have all the details. I think the balance was $68,000. The house was probably, in that condition, probably worth that much, if not less. And payment was about $700 a month, PI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Had no idea what I was going to do with it. It was just a deal, so go get it. That's what I was thinking. And we'll figure it out later. So we went to the bank, and I paid the money, got the receipt. Then we walked out and I was in the car with her and she was nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs for some reason. I don't know. And we drove, because it was like 10 till 5, and everything shuts down at 5. We drove from office to office to office, like 7 different places, trying to find a notary to get that dang deed signed. So finally we found some nice people at I think it was a check cashing place in Pearl, and got the deed signed. And then I got busy and didn't follow up on my right paperwork, and I eventually got it all in place. But I went to the house and it looked like they had been like using it as a dog house. It was in a neighborhood about 4 minutes from the airport. It literally had dog hair inside the oven. And she told me there was a smoke event. And I'm like, well, there was a small fire because there was soot everywhere. I was like, what have I gotten myself into, And I think that's one of the beautiful things about experience and failing forward. You have to make mistakes so that you learn. And when you write checks and you have your back against the wall and you have to figure stuff out, that's when you get good. Mm-hmm. That's when you learn. And so I think life isn't perfect. And in this investing time, you're going to make mistakes and you should welcome them. As a matter of fact, Lisa and I are big fans of Stoicism because we like the book, The Obstacle is the Way.
Right.
That's a great read for anybody in this business, I think, if you're just starting out. But anyway, so I went ahead and I said, if I rent this house, I got to put a lot of money in it. I got to paint it. I got to clean it. I got to fix the floors. That nasty carpet, with dog and cat pee. Who knows what was on it? It was just horrible shape. And it was on a nice corner lot. The outside looked really good, So I said, if I rent it, I got to put money in it. If I sell or finance it, I got to put money in it. If I retail it, I got to put a lot of money in it. So when I was driving out one day, it hit me and I was like, Cindy, you're 4 minutes from the airport. What are you thinking? This would be a great Airbnb house. So there it was. So, I kind of like having deadlines. So probably the next week I went ahead and listed it on Airbnb with my other listings and gave myself about 3 or 4 weeks to get it done. So I had to totally paint the house. I had to sand and stain the floors. We tore out half of the bathroom floor because it was rotten and retiled it. Had the bathtub, painted professionally. Had to do a lot of work on the air conditioning. Had to fully furnish. I mean, we left out of there at 10:30 at night, and our first guest came at 11:30. And we got
man, that's a tight deadline there.
I mean, I had the mattress lady bringing the mattress to my house. I had people on Facebook Marketplace bringing me, I'd buy it. And I said, look, I'm really busy trying to get this house. Can you bring it by to me and I'll just pay you here? So they were bringing stuff to the house for us to furnish the house, and the girl was like, I don't see how y'all, like the air conditioner was in the middle of the living room. Nothing was put up. And she said, you have people coming tonight? I said, yes, ma'am. I said, you got to get moving. She said, this is like being on the set of a HGTV Flip This House or something, And I'm like, it's a little different than that, but it feels like it. But everything worked out, I sense, and I'll tell this because I'll tell the good and the bad. So fast forward, I was remiss and I did not get the right kind of insurance, and life happened, and I meant to get the attorney to help me get the power of attorney, all the things you're supposed to do, right? So the lady calls up the attorney she calls me and she calls the attorney because her boss is a dentist who knows my attorney friend that Lisa and I use. Well, so he calls me, he says, Cindy, let's get together because she's kind of torqued up about this insurance. I said, okay, no problem. So I'm a Southern girl, so I say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, and I listen, and I have to be pushed pretty far in a corner before I come out, And so she like chewed on my tail for a good bit about insurance, and I didn't know the house was going to be, and I didn't know, and she was just venting. So I just let her ride, I let her ride. Well, in about 4 minutes, I guess the attorney got tired of hearing it. So he came back in there and he sat down and he said, Joy, he said, stop it. Stop right now. He said, you're not helping anybody. Let's figure out a solution and move forward. So I was like, Superman came in and helped me. But anyway, I deserved it. She needed to vent and chew on me a little bit. And that was fine because I took the blame for it. I didn't follow through. So that would be my advice, is to, either ask a lot of questions on your Facebook group or do your program, or reach out to somebody in your market that you trust that is good at subject to and knowing all the steps involved, because there are steps that have to be followed and documents that have to be in place for it to be a successful deal. And that's my suggestion, but it all worked out. And so the house is a great Airbnb. I've met people from all over the world. My neighbors love it. My neighbor actually, Lisa loves him, Mr. Eugene. He's about 80. And he told me one day, he said, Miss Cindy, I put some flowers in the flower bed for you. When I drove up that day, they were silk flowers, but they were beautiful, but they were silk flowers in the flower bed. And I buy him, he won't take money for cutting the grass. So I buy him gift cards from Golden Corral because he and his buddies like to go eat there every week. So that's his pay. And he's met people from all over the world that he never would have had a chance. And he loves that house like it's his. And so that worked out to be a really good deal. And it was a win for that lady because she got, I pay the mortgage every month. So her credit's good. It's just a win, like Lisa said, like y'all said, it's all the way around. Everybody wins. And that's the only way to go to me.
Yeah.
That was my deal.
That is a great story right there. And just an example about how you can make a lot of mistakes, and still come out okay on a deal. And it's not recommended, and it can be a little bit stressful, but you can definitely make some mistakes and make money in real estate for sure.
I'm living proof.
Yeah, I tell you what, we get stuff done in Mississippi now.
That's right.
Lisa, how about you? You have an interesting deal story you can share with us?
Yeah, I don't live in the wild, wild west like she does, but I could. My situation, probably the most bizarre, not really bizarre, probably the most difficult one I've had is that same flip that I was talking about earlier. It was a divorce situation. It was a rental property. The husband was in total control. The wife was clueless. She had no idea that the husband had even signed a lease option with the tenant. Her signature was not on the lease, so it was not even valid. She didn't even know that. I told her that when she gave me a copy, when she got a copy of it from him of the lease option. So we had a tenant. I was trying to close on it. Every day that ticked on by, there were late fees accruing that guess who had to pay? Lisa had to pay, right? So I'm like trying to get this tenant out. I even offered him cash for keys. Got it all worked, got the tenant out, and go to the closing table. And my attorney calls me and says, you need to be aware that Tom came in here crying, saying he's not signing anything. His sister's buying the house. He don't want to leave it. And my attorney said, you need to call him and see if you can get control of it, back of him, and go record your contract. And so I got him on the phone, and that's what I was getting ready to do. It happened late on a Friday when he was supposed to close. So unfortunately I had to wait all weekend, and I was planning to go record my contract on Monday, and he showed up at the attorney's office and signed everything. So it was pretty stressful going in and out. The wife even said, just let it foreclose. And then the husband was trying to take her portion of the promissory note since she was just going to let it foreclose. So it got pretty ugly between them at the end, but it all worked out.
Yeah. I tell you guys, I could talk to y'all all day about some of these stories, but I used to joke and say that I was going to write a book and call it A Diary of a Real Estate Investor.
You should.
Actually what we should all do is just collaborate on it and share our best stories. Can you imagine?
What a hoot.
It would be a hoot.
It
would be a bestseller.
That would be some interesting reading. I mean, for sure. I may have to work on that. I may have to put a post out or something asking for everybody's best stories and just put it together. I mean, it would be a pretty awesome. This really is an interesting business, and not only can you be very successful and and make an incredible amount of money, but it's just a lot of fun most of the time. I think, anyway.
Certainly.
But,
I mean, I'm not to the point where I would say I would do this without being paid, but I suspect at one point in my life, in a few years, I'll be where I would do it even if I didn't make money. I just enjoy it that much.
Yeah.
Of course I have to have enough money to be comfortable first, but I would. It's fascinating to me.
Absolutely. It's and we all look back at the things that we did in the past. I mean, I was in the restaurant business for 20 years, and there might have been a few days in there that were okay, but most of it wasn't the most fun job in the world. But it's certainly different every day. That's for sure. That's for sure. So you guys do a lot of stuff, obviously. I mean, y'all shared a lot of information. Tell us a little bit about how you learned to do what you do. Cindy, tell us, how you learned how to do all the different types of deals that you do.
Well, I think that, and I see a lot on the wholesaling pages of people that want to go out, do wholesale deals, and they don't know the difference between a 3-tab and an architectural shingle roof. They don't know a conventional foundation from a slab foundation or siding. They don't know anything about sticks and bricks. And I think that is elemental to me. That made me be a better investor, is knowing about houses, because I had a better grasp on rehab, although it doesn't always go according to plan. But so I just got out there and jumped in, and I wanted to learn it, and there was no plan B. And you have to realize that anything worth having or getting is not going to come easy, so you have to pay the price. And that's either studying a lot like I did. And I mean, Lisa's super duper. I mean, she has learned so much. She's spent a lot of, reading and comprehending time trying to help us get better, together and separately. And then you have to go, you have to travel. Like I'm looking forward to going. It's a long drive, but I may get to see my sister on the way, but I'm going to come see you, when you're in Kansas in a couple of weeks. And because it's worth it to me, whatever I got to sacrifice to get there, so I can learn from you, and like Lisa talked about Jim Ingersoll, and the events that my friend and mentor Walter has here in Jackson. So I think you just got to be around people who are doing what you want to do. And like me, I'll tell this real quick. I know we're running long, but Walter, my mentor, he asked me one time, he said, well, I want you to come and meet me at the McDonald's. We always joked that the McDonald's on Terry Road in in South Jackson, kind of rough neighborhood, was our office of South Jackson office, because they had free Wi-Fi. They'd make us fresh coffee. They played jazz music, and had lots of windows, so we could have an office there, And he sat me down and he said, look, I want you to do some clerical work for me. And I'm thinking, I'd rather dig a ditch in 100-degree weather across that parking lot than sit in front of a desk,
That's
And
right.
so I said, you know what? I'll do whatever you want me to do. I might not be really good at, spreadsheets or whatever, but I'll do it. And I'll do it for free just because I want to learn from you. And he said, no, you got to give me a price. Well, it rocked on there. A few weeks later, he was going to Europe for 3 weeks. And I was pretty new. I'd only had like 1 or 2 rental houses and done a few wholesale deals. And he said, Cindy, he said, I'm going to Europe for 3 weeks. And he met me at the bank and he handed me an envelope. He said, there's some signed deeds that need to go be recorded. There's some signed blank checks for you to pay workers. And I have 5 houses, and I need you to do something with them while I'm gone. And I must have had a look of terror in my eyes, because he said, look, you got some rental houses. You can make as good a decisions as me. He said, heck, I'm wrong 50% of the time anyway. And I just like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. And well, he went off to Europe, and we even closed the house long distance, while he was on the phone, and we were local, and I rented the houses and sold 2 of the houses and took care of all the rehab and took care of all the business. And when he came back and I handed him that envelope, and his business was still okay while he was gone 3 weeks, he realized the value that I provided. So that changed our relationship. And I became, kind of in the circle then, because I got to go to all those events. I was a trustee for him on lots of deals. I got insights that people didn't get otherwise. So that's what I would say. I would find somebody, I would provide value. And I would try to, because our time is expensive. People all the time want to ask Lisa and I about, can we go to lunch? And sometimes they don't even want to pay for lunch, but they want to pick our brains of 10 years of experience in an hour,
Right.
And I think sometimes that's because people don't know what our life is like. We're really busy. We have a lot on our plate, and it's hard for us to stop and pay attention to somebody that just wants something from us, with nothing in return. So, and I was that way. I'm sure I did Walter that way. I probably sent him deals because we didn't know what a real deal was. Right. And I talked to him about things that didn't really matter. And I understand now that was not the smart thing to do. But so I try to encourage everybody to just add some value, bring some value to a relationship if you want to be an investor, and just go do it. I mean, there's information out the wazoo. I mean, just being on your Facebook page and listening to your podcast. I mean, You have all the tools there. A person does on YouTube. It's all there. You just got to study and apply it and be around smart people, and you can do it. Anybody can do it. Anybody
Right.
can.
That's right. You know, I tell people that all the time when I say anyone can do it. I mean, I'm a ninth grade dropout. Okay.
Wow.
I don't have a college degree. I left home at 15. I mean, you know, and somehow, you know, just was willing to work, you know, and that's the key. You know, a lot of people want things handed to them, but you got to be able and be willing to get out there and do some work to get it. You know, I see people in our group all the time that say, you know, hey, I'm closing on my first deal. I learned it from podcast. That's it. That's great. You know, but action, taking action and actually doing something, that was the key to that. You know, learning and then implementing. That's what you got to do. So you're absolutely right. Lisa, how about you? How did you learn to do all the cool stuff that you do with investing?
A lot of mine is self-taught. I leaned on my husband a lot on the construction side, you know, as far as like learning how to come up with pricing for repairs, which I had to do all that as an REO broker too. So I can just roll off a lot of average numbers. I can walk in a house and pretty much write down everything that needs and know what I'll have in it when I leave, allowing a little bit of room for error. But for me, you know, pretty much it's self-taught and the help of my husband. I never went to anyone and said, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I follow you? Can I, and you know, maybe I should have, but now I know, and I get that from some people. And as much as I would love to help them, I don't have time. I don't have time to meet them for breakfast. I don't have time to meet them for lunch. I appreciate them asking me. But if I do that, that takes away from me trying to buy another house because I'm very addicted to buying houses. And
Oh, yeah.
so
I get it.
I educate myself and I don't find any Tom, Dick, and Harry on the internet. I go to the real deal people. You know, I am very fortunate because when I went through Jim Ingersoll's 3-day boot camp, I met the movers and the shakers of the real deal. And I started following them and I started going to their events. And I started, you know, a lot of these are prominent people. They're lawyers, they're CPAs, they're real big time real estate investors who knew what they were doing. And those are the ones that I go after. They didn't hold their hand out and ask me for 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. I didn't have it to give them anyway. So I learned from people that taught classes, and I learned how to buy and trust from Walter and a prominent attorney that owns an IRA, a huge IRA firm. These are the people that I learned from, and I paid to go to their classes, yes, but they could charge a whole lot more than what they were charging for the information that I was getting from them. So it's been a combination of education over 4 years that I have put together and that I study, and I make mistakes and I do better, you know, but I don't go and ask people for free advice because I know they don't have the time either. I'm going to pay for it and I'm going to learn on my own. And that's what I've done.
Right. And you bring up an interesting point, Lisa. What I have found in my 20 years of investing is that most of the real deal people, most of the people that'll give you the most valuable real life information don't charge 20 and 30 and 40 and $50,000 for it. They don't have to because they really invest in real estate.
That's right.
You know, you can go take a class from someone like Pete Fortunato for $500 or $600, and that guy's done more than all three of us will probably ever do in our lives.
Exactly.
You know? But then you can go to another class that costs you $50,000. You know, and I mean, is that worth it? Hey, some people say it is. And listen, the truth of the matter is, if you pay $50,000 for a course that'll teach you how to buy houses and be financially free, is it worth it? Absolutely it is. But the most important thing is that you have to use the information, you know, and that's where most people just fail to actually get out there and do something, I think. So I hear what you're talking about.
I agree.
Listen, you, Guys, we've covered a lot of stuff here. I do want to close out with one more question if you guys have time. If you could just give new investors starting out some advice. You got a brand new person here that's just getting started, and you've got a couple of minutes to give them some advice that might make a difference. What would that be, Cindy? What would you tell them?
Well, I would say maybe join the local real estate investment group. Certainly do a lot of research on your own. And my personal pain point is find someone, if you really think you're going to be an investor and you want to do it, I think you need to set up your business in your books early on so that you don't get behind the 8 ball, and find a good CPA that understands real estate to help you set up QuickBooks and learn how to use QuickBooks, and then find a bookkeeper when you grow to help you manage the QuickBooks, and an attorney probably to set up some sort of business structure with LLCs or someone who uses land trust. Learn about that to protect yourself and do things the proper way. But I think just find somebody that you can identify with and go learn from them, whether you have to volunteer or you have to pay for their time, and go to the RIAs and study and just take a chance on yourself. I mean, there was no book with a roadmap that taught me where to go. I just took a chance. I believed in myself, and that's something I think we have to do. We have to help ourselves every day, because the world that we live in, unfortunately, is very negative. So I think it's important to surround yourself with positive people and listen to good, positive messages from, YouTube or books on tape, and just go to that spiritual gym, like my friend Jen Sincero says, and do certain things every day to keep your motivation there, and just keep listening to the Sub 2 Deals podcast. I mean, you can do a deal. I mean, you really can, and there's people on there that'll help you. So just reach out and but be genuine and ask for help, and just take a chance on yourself. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, good advice. Lisa, how about you? What would you tell them?
Don't give up. That's the number one thing. No matter what, persevere. You just have to keep moving forward. It's okay to have temper tantrums, meltdowns, because you're going to have many, many, many more. Even if you're very experienced, you're going to have them. I think the biggest thing for me was believing in myself, believing that I could do it, that I can do it. And if I were, I can't look backwards because I'm not headed that way. So looking forward, if I were to do it all over again, I would find somebody in my network, or that I knew, because when you're brand new, you don't have anybody in your network, right? So I need to rephrase that. I would find somebody. It's got to be somebody that or maybe that owns a lot of rental properties, or is somehow invested in real estate. I would find that person, and they'd probably want to lock me up for harassment. I think I would go after them and say, please, I would beg and plead, please, can I paint for you? Can I follow you? Can I help you clean up your yard when you get it ready? So they would teach me, right? Because that's really that. If you don't have any money, that's where you're gonna learn from somebody that has a lot of experience that way. But I am, like I said before, I'm a big believer in education. Instead of going on that vacation, which I rarely do anyway, I would take that money and I would go to Pete Fortunato class in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I would go maybe on one of their cruises. That's where you're going to learn. That's where you are going to learn. I have learned so much from going on cruises with high-level real estate investors. So I'm all about, educating in an inexpensive way. Right. So that's the advice I would have. And it doesn't take a lot of money now. When I first started, that was part of the reason I didn't start when I was 18. I always thought you had to have your own money. And I said that a million times. I can't do it. I don't have any money. Well, I'm living proof that you can borrow money from private investors for the whole purchase, for the whole rehab, and build in your payments if you need to. And you can do that. So if anybody tells you that's all baloney, it's not. You really can do that. And I'm living proof of that.
Yeah, I agree. And cruises are kind of fun too. I've been on a few of those myself.
They are.
Yeah, those guys. You get those guys on a cruise ship and they have a couple of those pineapple drinks and everything. They'll take all the secrets,
Oh, yes.
Guys, I tell you, I can't tell you how appreciative I am of you guys coming on today and talking with us. Y'all have so much information, and I know that you guys actually even have a group on Facebook and sort of a mastermind sort of thing. Tell us a little bit about that and how people can find you if they want to, to get in your mastermind. Or, I mean, I think it's geared toward ladies, if I understand. But I know the couple of times that I've said, hey, well, am I invited? You guys seem pretty open to co-ed. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, we did start Lisa's husband. He's a ex-cop and a contractor, and he's an awesome guy. And he would just tell Lisa, he would say, "Get it, girl." And so that just kind of described us, I mean, we just go get stuff done and we take care of business. And so we kind of took that on as our name. And we just wanted to surround ourselves because, and your group honestly is very open, and people can ask the stupid questions and they ask high level questions, but everybody gets an answer and everybody's willing to help. And that's a very comfortable place to be for learning. So we like that. And that's kind of where we were. I was in the group with lots of men, and I was the only woman, and I was a wallflower, and I was intimidated, and I wouldn't really ask questions. So my learning was delayed because I wouldn't get out there because I'm kind of an introvert. Mm-hmm. And so Lisa and I when we got to know each other, we just thought, well, we'll just have our own group. We'll just make our own little family, of women and men. A lot of our lenders are men, a lot of our friends. As a matter of fact, I have to break myself. I'm trying to, but when I think about this is my problem, who can I call for an answer? Who can help me solve this? And a lot of time it's a guy, that's my go-to, because we wanted to be in the circle with the guys. We didn't want to go shopping with our wives. So that's what led us to doing that. And then our first mastermind event was kind of organic, just to grew with a group of friends that we already knew and some people we didn't. So that was pretty awesome. But Lisa, you can tell them about our page and what kind of plans we got.
Yeah, we have, it's called the Get It Girls on Facebook. And we're growing that. We have a business coach that's helping us. And so, like she was saying, we really didn't plan this, ladies, well, it's all ladies, but we really didn't plan the mastermind where all the ladies came. What we like to do is we like to do Zoom calls with some women that we don't know very well, and we want to get to know and learn more about them and see if there's anything we can do for them and they can do for us. And we've met some really great women that way. And one day we were on one with 8 or 9 of us, and we were just talking about, we wanted to run a deal by them and get their feedback because they're all real savvy real estate investors. And they're in our network. We go on cruises with them and to events with them. So we pulled them all together. Well, not all of them. We pulled some of them together and said, hey, what do y'all think about this? And how can you help us? How would you structure this? And so one of them said, hey, I'll put my place up. She's in Texas, Peggy. She said, I'll put my place, one of my Airbnbs up, a couple of my other Airbnbs up. Let's just get together and do it. And we did. And we flew there. I flew there and drove to her lake house, and we had a ball. And I can't tell you how many of them just really appreciated it. And it was funny because what goes on at the lake house stays at the lake house, right? So
wow, I missed that.
You should have came, William. So we had a great time. We want to do more of that. Cindy says it well, and I always get it screwed up. We really wanted to be what somebody wasn't for us. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes absolute sense. I like that a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
so we would like to eventually have an event, and no, we're not. It's not all about women. We love to have men. We would certainly want you to be at our event. We'd want you to be on stage at our event. So we don't have any plans for that right now, but we do see that in the future.
Well, it sounds like a really good group and a good place for, ladies or guys to come out and learn some stuff about real estate. I know that you guys certainly know a lot about it, and, have the kind of environment that, lends itself to learning and not a lot of shenanigans. So
exactly.
We'll have a link to your group in our show notes for everybody if they want to come check you guys out and talk.
That's awesome, William. Thank you.
Thank you, William. That is awesome.
I think that'll be great. I know I saw some of the videos and photos that you guys posted from your event. It looked like you guys were having a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for sure.
Well, we wanted to make sure that when everybody came, they actually got something. It wasn't so overwhelming and so many topics that we wanted to make sure they got something that they could like take home and really use. Mm-hmm. And that was important to us. And I think we accomplished that.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Well, again, guys, I like I said, I can't thank you enough for being here today. You shared a lot of information. I'm sure the listeners are going to get a lot out of it. So just want to thank y'all for being here today.
Thank you, William.
I mean, it was an honor and a pleasure to get to do this. And maybe what we offer can help other people be successful. That's the best compliment to us.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. So you guys, like I said, we're going to have a link to Cindy and Lisa's group, Get It Girl. We're going to have a link to their Facebook group in the show notes. So y'all get over there and check them out. That's it for this episode of the Sub 2 Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it. And you, if you would go subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute and it helps other people find the show. And if you haven't already, join us in our Facebook group at sub2forum.com. Lots of resources for you at sub2deals.com, our website, and anything we can do to help, just let us know. So until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub 2 Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit sub2deals.com and on Facebook at Sub 2 Deals. We'll catch you next time.